Right on the
And
center.
we're welcoming our friends on the Zoom podcast tonight. Our speaker is Dr. Tracey Arbour. The title of our lecture is the Anu
Or quark.
or the Quark. And the fundamental basis of this is really the esoteric significance of quantum, right? That's what we're
Absolutely.
talking about.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're anticipating a really wonderful lecture tonight. And anybody on Zoom, you can turn down your volume. And we'll go ahead and get started, Tracey.
Okay. Well, clap, yeah. Okay, bear with me. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about the most fundamental particle of all matter and life in our universe. And in theosophy, they call it the Anu, but quantum physics calls it the quark. Now, when we all get together here at the end of our session before we all leave to go home, we form a circle and we. Okay, sorry,
Feedback.
we good? Yeah. And we say a prayer that was written by Annie Besant, a theosophist. And the name of the prayer is O Hidden Life. And the prayer goes like, hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know that they are therefore one with every other. So tonight, our focus is going to be on the little hidden light or hidden life that Annie Besant is talking about, which basically makes up our entire world and universe. And to do this, we have to journey into the quantum world of subatomic particles, because the Anu or quark, which I'll be using those two terms interchangeably, they mean the same thing, Anu and quark. We need to journey into the subatomic particle world to actually view these. So through the aid of the ancient wisdom teachings, science, and some highly refined clairvoyant observations, we're going to get a really close look at these points of light and hopefully learn something about them. So we're going to begin with Brahma, who the Hindus say is the creator of the universe and all things within it. When Brahma awakens, the universe is born anew and the cycle of life begins anew. Basically, what that means is like we have a 24-hour day. We live, we wake up, we go through our 24 hours. Brahma's one day is 4,320,000,000 years long. Really long day. So at the end of our day, which we don't stay up the 24 hours, but we stay up long enough, then we go to bed at night and we relax and we assimilate in our sleep everything that we've been through during the day and all that. Brahma does the same thing. He goes into a period of rest after this 4,320,000,000 years, and he goes into what they call a rest or obscuration period. And during that time, he reviews everything that he's experienced, everything he's expressed, all that's been learned and earned, absorbed and assimilated. And then he brings it forward into the next day to perfect upon and to build upon further. So kind of like us, we wake up each day and hopefully we're better the next day, right? We're going to build on what we've learned. So the ancients tell us that Brahma brings everything forward from previous evolutions or evolutionary schemes. And basically all that means is he brings it in from the day before, easily put. So science tells us that our universe is 13 billion years old, which translates to 3 days of Brahma. The ancients tell us that the beginning of a day of Brahma begins with a great breath. We all know that, or science calls it the Big Bang. And what that does, that Big Bang or great breath, it creates a vibration that sets our entire universe into motion. And the vibration we know as the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word, right? First there was the Word, and then there was light. And those are the little points of light that we're going to talk about. Those are the Anu, or the quark, that we're going to learn about. And these little points of light happen milliseconds, almost instantaneously after the Big Bang or the Om. Immediately the points of light appear. So the Om sets everything into motion. It brings in a very hot, expanding soup of fundamental particles. And immediately, the first thing that happens, or the first little points that appear, are the quark gluons. This is what science calls them, or Anu. Sorry. And there's Galen, and where's Don? Well, there's Don. The quark gluon, or Anu, is also known as the plasma. You guys were talking about science, talking about everything in our universe comes from the plasma or the quark gluon. So everything, all life. So a few milliseconds, or 10⁻⁶ seconds after the Big Bang, the quarks or Anus appear. Then a few more milliseconds later, these quarks and Anu start to form protons and neutrons. And it isn't until 3 minutes after the Big Bang that we start to see the formation of low mass nuclei. Now, we don't have atoms yet. We got to get the nucleus first. So what happens then is 3 minutes after the Big Bang, we finally get the nucleus. And it'll take another 300,000 years before the first atom is formed. 300,000 years later. And this process occurs through a system called nuclear synthesis. And the first atom, of course, hydrogen atom, which is the building block of our universe. So 300,000 years after the Big Bang, we get the first atom. 100 million years later, the first star appears in our universe. 500 million years later, the first galaxy is formed. And 4 billion years later, star formation peaks in our universe. So it's a big process. So the quarks and gluons, or Anu, are the architects and the builders of everything in our entire universe. This is the baby right here. And they do this by carrying within them 3 principles: the principle of spirit, the principle of consciousness, and the principle of matter. We may call it Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Father being spirit, Son being the consciousness, and Holy Ghost being the matter or form. Now, within each quark or Anu, and by the way, these are quark Anu pictures, but I'll get into that later. But within each quark or Anu, there is always a blending of spirit, matter, and consciousness. The only difference between Anus are the varying proportions and frequencies, how much some may have more spirit and less matter. Some may be more conscious, some may be less conscious and have a lot of spirit, or vice versa. So that's the combination of the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's where that comes from: spirit, matter, and consciousness, and the blending. Now, the wisdom teachings maintain that all matter is only temporary, that form and matter exist only as long as they are ensouled by consciousness to fulfill a certain purpose. And we'll talk about the purpose of an Anu in a minute. If consciousness is withdrawn, then form and matter cease to exist. Now, this is ancient wisdom teachings telling us this. Quantum physics verifies it now. And they say through what they call the observer effect. Are you all familiar with the observer effect, or does we need to explain it? Okay. So the observer effect, the observer is the conscious component. The active conscious would, no matter how conscious, you don't have to be human consciousness, to just a little bit of that, So what is the purpose of a quark or an Anu? It has a dual purpose. Duh, we live in a duality, right? We live in a duality. So of course, in our solar system, it has a dual purpose. Maybe not in other solar systems, but in ours, it has a dual purpose. And I think pretty much this covers everywhere too, because number one, its first purpose is to unfold the life and consciousness that it carries within itself. And secondly, to allow growth of perfection of the matter and form of the life and consciousness that it holds. So that makes sense. And correspondingly, we do the same thing, right? I mean, we unfold ourselves and we have to grow and perfect ourselves. No different. So now we're going to take a look at, this is a photograph that was taken from the Hadron Particle Collider back in 2012, which was 11 years ago. So this is old news now. But is everybody familiar with what happened with the collider? They just smashed the atoms open to crack them open like an egg and look inside and see what the fundamental particle was that builds our whole universe. So they smashed, this in particular is a photograph of a hydrogen atom. A hydrogen proton, sorry, the proton of a hydrogen atom. And I put this on the side just so we could visualize. So this would be an atom. Inside the atom, little basic science, is the nucleus. And then this is showing the nucleus in a bigger picture. So here's the atom, the nucleus is there. Now we're getting a big version of the nucleus. And the nucleus is made up of protons and neutrons. And the quarks are these little points of light, live, like we learned at the very beginning, they live in the proton and the neutron. That's where they're at. So they cracked it open, and this white, large circle white light, that is the proton. That's the proton itself. Inside the proton, you have 3 anu, or 3 quarks, which are the points of light. And the squiggly lines are called gluons. Now, every quark always has to have a force with it. You just don't get a quark. You have to have quarks that have force also. So these are sticky forces, the gluons, and they hold together these 3 anu, forming the hydrogen, God bless you, forming the hydrogen nucleus, part of the nucleus of the hydrogen there. So one of the things that's important to notice when you look at this photo is the symmetry, because nature is very symmetrical. Look at how perfect, I mean, how perfect is that? It's just perfect, right? So, oh, bless you again.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to take a look at, we're going to go back in time now. We already saw what science saw in 2012, 11 years ago. But 117 years before the Hadron Collider, 2 theosophists, Annie Besant, who wrote the prayer, O Hidden Life, and C.W. Leadbeater, were asked to look with their clairvoyant vision and find the fundamental particle of all life and form in our universe. And they took the challenge. At the time, there were 95 elements on the periodic table. They looked at every single element on the periodic table and documented it, drew it out. And they also looked at crystals, chemical compounds, and complex molecules and drew those out. And what they created was their textbook called Occult Chemistry, where you can look and see basically their pencil type drawings that they did.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why is it called occult chemistry?
Occult, you know what occult is? Occult is nature.
Okay.
It's another word for, I'm going to make it very simple.
Okay.
Another word for occult is
Natural
nature.
chemistry.
So natural chemistry, absolutely. And so that's what they call it, because when you start putting your atoms and things together, you have chemical responses and things. So I'm sure that's why they called it that.
Okay.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the proton of the hydrogen atom, that was the picture that was taken by the collider, and we're going to look at C.W. Leadbeater and Besant's drawing. So like I said, here's the proton, right? The light, and then the 3 points of light were the anu with the sticky force gluons holding them together. Now, looking first at theirs, when they first looked at this, they actually saw it like that. See how blurry those are? They're in rapid motion. They were vibrating so quickly that they really couldn't see them. So they, by their will, they focused even more and slowed down the vibration. And what they found was within each one of those vibrating things, there were heart-shaped looking quarks, Anu. These were it. And the other thing they noticed, they have plus and minus signs within the heart. They put those there because some were spinning to the right, which they put a plus sign or positive. Some were spinning to the left. So they put a negative to designate that, okay? Their gluons are the straight lines. They didn't draw them squiggly or anything. And this is the thing that really blows my mind more than anything, what they found. So you're seeing two sets of them. You're not just seeing one. Like we can only see one set of three. Here we're seeing two sets. What the heck's that all about? As above, so below. It's a mirroring. Positive and negative. It's the mirroring. As above, so below. And quantum physics, now you can't see it in the photograph, but through mathematical equations and that, they have found that every quark has a matching anti-quark with it, always. Again, our duality and looking at the mirror image. They actually saw that and they drew that out. That blows away. It's like, wow. So I think that was kind of cool. All right, we're going to go back now even more in time. Before Leadbeater and Besant drew their, looked at their Anus, an American doctor, physician, his name was Dr. Edwin Babbitt. 30 years before Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater, and 147 years before the collider found the quark. This guy found the quark. He was doing research on light therapy for his patients. And he was very clairvoyant, and he decided to look for the fundamental particle of everything. So using his clairvoyant vision, this is what he drew. A heart-shaped, again, heart-shaped. And he said there were multiple colors, like 7 different colors. And one of the things he noted was that through each Anu, each individual one, there was a negative pole and a positive pole, and the energy poured into the negative pole on top and out the positive pole. So there was an energy force pouring through there, which he called a torrent. So it was rotating. And he said, looking with his vision, that there was no material at all. It was just circulating energy. There was really nothing. It was just circulating colorful energy. So now we're going to look at the anatomy of the Anu and quark. We're going to use Dr. Babbitt's drawing because I think it shows the energy coming in, going out. It shows the color, and it shows like how it's in action through his motion here. So for every single quark is made up of 10 whorls, and him and Leadbeater and Besant, they all agreed. So it's in the chemistry books and that too. So every quark is made up of 10 whorls. Each whorl, each of the 10 whorls is a different color. And each whorl is made of 7 smaller whorls that they call spirilla. This is the spirilla. So this is an enlargement of a spirilla, okay? And the last or 7th spirilla consists of 7 hollow bubbles. It ends like in 7 hollow bubbles. Really interesting. The findings are confirmed by quantum physics once again, that 99% of all solid matter is made up of empty space. There's your bubbles. within which the atoms and subatomic particles behave as vortices of energy in constant motion. It's kind of cool. Now, we're going to make this a little more complicated. Not much, though. So, according to the ancient wisdom teachings, in all matter, no matter how large or how small, how conscious or unconscious, there must always be the elements of emotion, mind, and spirit. Everything contains that, everything in our universe. So when we look at this enlarged spirilla, it's a little bit easier to look at that way. The main coil, the largest coil, is the physical etheric element. Wrapped within it flows the astral emotional element. Wrapped within that, even deeper, lies the finer coil of mental element, the mental or mind. And within that, even finer, is your spiritual element. So basically, every Anu has layers of energy within every quark, every Anu. And they're interpenetrated with the elements of physical, etheric, astral, mental, and spiritual energies. Everything. So I decided to put this picture up because I'm going to talk more about our solar system because it's septenary. Our solar system, everybody knows who studies theosophy that we're a septenary solar system. Everything is subdivided into sevens. So we have 7 planes. We have 7 subplanes within each of these planes. Okay. So we're going to look more just in the physical, etheric, astral, and mental. We're going to concentrate more on the lower planes because that's what we're going to be talking about. So basically, there's Anu on every plane and every subplane. Obviously, it's everything in the whole universe. So of course it has to be on every plane and subplane. But the Anu that are on the mental plane are made up of mental material. So they're vibrating a little bit differently. They have a little bit of different type of consciousness, and they carry an electrical charge. Mind is electric, mental thoughts. On the astral plane, the quarks carry an emotional element, astral emotional material, and they carry with them a magnetic force. Hence, we always say, watch your thoughts, watch your emotions. Whatever we're thinking, and energy follows thought, as David said a million times, and anybody who does energy medicine knows energy follows thought. Well, we're bringing all those Anu and everything, we're trying to materialize them onto the physical plane, from the mental down astral into the physical. So we got to watch what we're thinking and all that kind of stuff. So I've always wondered, how does things just materialize? How does it just all of a sudden materialize on the physical plane? Well, obviously, Besant and Leadbeater also thought the same thing because they observed it. So what we're looking at here in this picture is just the physical plane. So the most lowest dense plane is the physical plane, and basic science divided into 7 subplanes. We have solid, liquid, gas, ionic, third etheric, second etheric, first etheric, and then right above that starts the astral plane. Okay, so those are our 7 subplanes, just so you get an idea. So what Leadbeater and Besant saw was that only when 49, again, divided by 7, that only when 49 quarks came together and formed sort of a nucleus, did one of them take energy from the rest and create itself in physical form as a physical particle or atom. And here's where the balance comes in nature. And for every 1 atom that appeared on the physical plane, 1 atom went back into the astral plane to energize 49 more quarks or Anu there. And I don't know if that would be the dance of Shiva and Shakti, you know, that back and forth.
It is. Yeah.
And just the dance, so the materialization, dematerialization. Okay, and there you have it. 49 quarks it takes to just, that's a lot. All right, I mean, really, what is a science talk without Einstein and E equals MC squared? I had to put this in. Okay. So obviously, we all know now, it's common knowledge, matter and energy are interchangeable through his equation. So it takes a tremendous amount of energy for a quark to be transformed into physical matter. I'm going to give you a really easy example of this. How much energy will it take for a single piece of fudge, piece of fudge, to materialize on the physical plane and be a piece of fudge, right? Well, first we'd have to weigh the piece of fudge, which is the mass. Then we have to times it by the speed of light squared. And the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second, right? Squared. That will give you how much energy it took for that piece of fudge to be sitting there for you to eat, okay? And that's just a piece of fudge. What about us? How many days of Brahma do you think we took to be here? How much energy are we using to be here and to continue to be here? Put yourself into that and think, that's a lot. We're a lot of energy there. Lots and lots of energy. So anyways, I just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg on the Anu, just to kind of put your toes in the water and you know, there's so much more than what I've talked about here tonight. But I think that we hopefully got a little feel for what those little points of light are and what our whole universe is made of. So hopefully the next time we recite Oh Hidden Life, we'll think about those little Anu and quarks and know they work so hard so we could notice them. I mean, gosh, that's a lot of work. That's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Any questions?
Tracy, Tracey mentioned to me about yoga and meditation.
Oh.
And I would like you to relate to the group the genetics of yoga and meditation.
Yeah, well, this is something interesting. I kind of, like I said, there's so much more. So, you know, when we were looking at the spirali within the Anu, okay. Basically, we're in the 5th root race right now, okay? So I'm going to go back to the fourth root race. And for every single Anu in the 4th root race, by the end of the 4th root race, there were 4 spirali per Anu. We're working in this 5th subrace to bring 5 spirali into activity. Mm-hmm. Now, the masters in that, you're talking 6 and 7 spirali per Anu. I mean, ones that are in physical, I mean, they're beyond. But just when they say that when you practice yoga and breathing and that type of thing, that helps energize the Anus that are within your system. And you're helping to create another spirali. You're speeding your evolution up. Because it won't be till the end of the 5th subrace that the average man will, you know, like average men will have 5 spirali, and in the 6th subrace it'll be 6 spirali. Root race, sorry. Yeah. So I thought that was a very interesting fact, because you know, you do yoga and everything, you're doing it to increase your vibration and all that, but when you look at the anatomy of it, I find that really interesting. You know, might not be everybody's gig, but just to think about how many spirali you have actively going on in your Anu. and I think another really interesting fact, yeah, I mean, think about that. And I think another thing I thought was, actually, I'm gonna fast forward here, because I thought this was kind of interesting. Now that we know what Anus are and atoms. So there's a trillion atoms in a human cell, a cell, like a blood cell. think about how many points of light are in that. And then there's equally, they say 1 trillion cells in a human body. We truly are beings of light. I mean, people don't realize it, but that's crazy. Anyways, so I, yeah, who would have
The
thought?
universe.
Think about stuff like that, but crazy things. Anyways,
No, wait, there's a 100,000
it's a trillion
billion. There's a trillion atoms in a human cell.
in one cell.
And then
One
there's
cell,
100
an
trillion.
average, an
cells in the
average.
body, and then a trillion cells in the human body. So that's a trillion.
And there's 8 billion people on Earth.
Can you imagine? I mean, seriously, every single person, no matter how unconscious they may be or conscious, they're carrying around with them a lot of light, a lot of light.
Duh.
For Anna, not her basket.
I know, but it's crazy.
And everybody's
Lots
got.
under the basket,
Yeah, I mean,
under the radar.
So you're saying which evolution we are right now as a humans?
we are in the fifth
Fifth subrace of the fifth root
of the
race.
fifth root race, and there's 7 sub races, so we still have a little ways to go
Our
yet.
job is to open the throat chakra.
I see.
Mhm.
It's one of the reasons why music and singing is so popular. Never before in any of the other root race has that ever been a reality.
So I have a question to both of you. Since you're becoming more
I don't know if I'll
in
know,
a
but-
scientifically, right? So, like I was reading a book about the humans in, we all human, obviously, right?
Right.
But people that in Africa, it seems like they have more, their, what do you call these bones in
The
here?
ribs,
Ribs, they have more ribs than us.
probably
Why?
just their genetic.
Well, okay, so, I mean, I don't know.
Root race.
Yeah, I was just
Is
gonna
that
say, they're not as developed.
Do you think that
Evolved.
they might be different evolution?
Yes.
maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Lemurian, the
Yep.
Lemurian, products of the Lemurian root race.
Mhm.
And then there was the Atlantean root race. Now we're the Aryan root race.
So it kind of like tells me, okay, so this is my small brain, right? So now we're better than them because we evaluated
No, we're different.
we're
We're
different
just
or
different.
You're just different?
Yeah,
not better, but different?
no, yeah, like in the Lemurian days, it was all about mastering and getting the physical body,
Mhm.
because we were just starting to come into form on this physical plane. So that whole Lemurian root race really worked on physical body. And like he said, he said,
I
and then the Atlantean fourth root race really worked on the emotional body, the emotions. And we're working on mind. Aryan root race is working on the mind right now. Everything, we're supposed to be going from the solar plexus to the mental, to mind, expanding the mind. So,
Can I say something?
sure.
I always thought, or I shouldn't say I always thought. When we were growing up, I would think for most of us who grew up in the society, it seems like we were taught that the older you get, the less active you're going to be able to be, and the less your brain is functioning because it's wearing out. I mean, the old paradigm, it seems to me like, was when I was a kid, it seems like they taught people like, well, when you get old, you can't get around as good, and you're gonna have to go to the doctor, and you can't do stuff as much and everything, right? Doesn't it seem like that? But what I noticed is I have a few close friends that I'm in touch with a lot, and it seems to me like they're getting smarter. I have a friend from high school, and she is smarter. She thinks deeper. She catches or jokes more. And I don't know what she does in terms of rituals. Like my one friend, I know he prays a lot, and I meditate a lot and stuff. I'm not sure what my other friend does, but she's smarter than she used to be. And
She laughs at your jokes.
or maybe she ignores them.
Yeah, but I think that's where our root race is going. That's what it's all about, is the mental. And we're becoming, again, we're all connected, correct? I mean, we all know that we're all connected. And when one uses their, like more Einsteins are starting to come into manifestate onto this plane too. I mean, it helps lift that mental unit. Our humanity, we share a mental unit. We share the mental plane together also. We share the astral plane. We share everything. So when you do something good, everybody benefits, everybody.
Yeah.
And the more people that are reading, I mean, there's more reading now than there ever was. I mean, back in the day, they didn't even have light that much at night. So, they couldn't read that much. Their education wasn't as rich. Their diets weren't as rich.
But
et
I
cetera.
don't mean smarter as in having more knowledge. I mean smarter as in kind of being able to perceive things, having more insight and wisdom and stuff like that.
That goes with increased vibration, increased frequency and vibration of the mental unit. And there are enough people on the planet, obviously, that are bringing it up. And who knows what the masters are doing, because that's part of their work is on those higher planes, helping us to do that.
Right. So it's kind of collective, but
Yeah.
we have to know how to tap it maybe, or.
Well, I think, I mean, again, people benefit even if they're not, because enough people are doing it.
So you really don't.
But you do need to, I mean, because you want to pull your weight, you want to do, that's how you evolve more. So if you're doing meditation, but your neighbor isn't, your vibration's definitely going to be higher, and it'll help bring them up a little. They may not be where you're at, but it's going to help bring them a little bit.
Yeah, just.
I mean, that's just common sense.
So I remember one time I used to work at a hospital years ago, and there was this one nurse there, and I don't know how to say this. I do know how to say this. So she kind of like, we had this imitation where we go, huh? Because she just acted like she didn't get it. She'd go, huh? Like that a lot. And I was off. I took a temporary layoff for the summer, and I came back a few months later, and I noticed that I had changed. I'd grown when I think back on it. And a lot of people that were working there that I knew, they seemed to have changed and grown. And I heard Judy go, huh? And I thought, she's changed, but she hasn't grown. And there's that saying, change is inevitable, growth is optional. It seems to me like we need to do the spiritual work to grow.
Right.
Even though people benefit, we can get the benefits of stuff.
Right.
But it seems like we need to do some kind of spiritual work to grow, or maybe, am I being too judgmental of myself, or?
No, I think what you're not understanding is, even though you're in a human body, and we all have human bodies, we're all at a different evolutionary level.
We're not all equal.
We're not all equal, no matter what they tell you.
So I quit meditating.
So maybe her physical body might be better than yours. I'm just throwing this
I
out,
see what you
but
mean.
her mental unit still needs work. And maybe that's why she's around people like you and the others, because it helps lift her. Maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe in 3 more lifetimes, she's going to be where you are
I
now.
get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and that's something that people don't, they don't talk about. They go, oh, you better not say you're not equal, but we really aren't equal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. So
So I was really just being judgmental by.
no, you weren't being
Well-
judgmental. I think you were being very observative. I think just the fact that you observed that and were aware of it
Yeah,
and brought it to your awareness, that's
but she might be growing in other ways that I wasn't, or, yeah.
exactly. And it may
yeah.
take her longer, not everybody, that's like you were talking about, like in Africa and stuff. Usually the new souls are in those type of places, because when you look at the Aborigine people, they're like the birds. When you see a whole flock of birds and they all move together, that's like the Aborigine people. They haven't really individuated a whole lot yet. So they're still moving. That's why they're so telepathic still, or whatever. They haven't really, developed a different type of mind. They're still
Right, they've grown
with
other
the
ways.
collective.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is what we say. We're not all equal as far as the age of the soul is concerned. If you drew a graph that was in the shape of a football, you would see that one portion at one end would be young souls. And the portion at the opposite end would be mature, older souls. And in the middle are the masses, whose age is neither young nor old. And that makes up this football-like graph. I was going to tell you something. Baker said one time that, I've heard others say it too, that as the forests of the world are destroyed, mostly in Central South America, Africa primarily, the habitat of the souls that would normally live in those tribal areas, among tribal people, their opportunity is diminished, and they're incarnating in the ghettos of the cities around the world. And that's why one of the reasons that we have a lot of crime is that young souls need laws to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. I don't need a law to tell me that I shouldn't kill somebody because I know that. But there are people who don't know that. And so we have laws for people, to help guide them. So it's an interesting thought when I remember one time it was on 60 Minutes and they did a program on Harlem, and they were in a pool room in Harlem, which in my mind would be a pretty rough place to be. And the guy interviewing this young black man said, well, what's it like living in Harlem? And you guys, they have boards that they extend from building to building way up high on the roofs. So if the buildings are 6 feet apart, rather than to walk in the street, they go up on the roofs and they walk across these boards to get to the next building or buildings down the street to where they want to go, and then they climb down the fire escape or whatever. So the guy in the pool room, when he was asked what it was like, he said, man, it's a jungle here. See, their jungles are being eliminated in South America and in Africa, and they have to incarnate someplace, so they reincarnate in the jungles of the inner cities.
Wow.
And they live out their tribal existence, and they become gang members, and they are similar in their evolution to those souls that are living in the tribal jungles of the world.
So we have 10 minutes left, so
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure you have more on.
I'm good. Does anybody have questions? that
Anybody
are not
question
here?
here, Rainey?
Do you have, and it's just open to whoever in the
Oh,
audience,
good.
or, David,
Great.
do you have
Because I'm
a good definition or a sufficient definition for the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
Oh, yeah. Knowledge is just book knowledge, mind, brain. Wisdom comes from experience, plus especially the experience and living. You gain your wisdom. You're not as wise when you're a little kid, but by the time you become an adult, certain things. That would be the wisdom. And wisdom's more of a heart chakra.
Like an emotion?
No, like intuition.
Okay, intuition.
Definitely not emotion.
All right.
Emotion is totally astral plane.
So when it comes to wisdom, it seems to me like it would be beneficial if when you were growing up, that there was someone around you who was wise, and you learned kind of how to think in ways that would help you develop your wisdom.
That would help.
Or
Maybe you were
Maybe not.
born very wise because you may be a very old soul, like David said. You automatically know when you're, certain kids know, I don't want to hit somebody. I'm not going to murder somebody. I'm not going to steal that. I knew that I didn't even need somebody to tell me that. And I was a little kid.
so you could be wiser than your parents.
Oh, I
When you were
was
5
wiser
years
than
old.
my parents. My parents ended up seeing a psychiatrist because they couldn't keep up with me. My mom used to always say that. She goes,
Because somebody came in
we were
a little
like,
bit wiser than
Well, I would tell them,
Parents
I mean, I was like 3, 4 years old and I would say, I don't understand why you're acting like this or doing this, and I would tell them, you know. But I did. My mom said, you caused us all kinds of,
But that's not just wisdom, that's like you were able to think logically and.
well, I don't know. I mean, I remember
Stuff.
certain things, not so much what my mother told me, but I do remember certain, because I remember thinking to myself, listening to the adults talk, like, what the heck? Where are they coming from? This is so crazy. Why? You know, just,
The adults bored you.
well, they were not very grown up,
Oh,
okay? You know,
Yeah.
not very grown up.
Yeah, oh, that's fun.
It seems like some of these great spiritual teachers and masters were able to see some of these anus and all. And science is finally starting to catch up and prove that. So it's been dovetailing. Are there times when they don't dovetail? Have you seen times when they don't agree with each other?
Well, I think we're right now coming into a period where things are opening up. That's why quantum
Right, but
science,
they're
like,
proving.
yeah, I think that we have time. I think they're Kali Yugas, aren't they? Or what they call
Kali
them,
Yugas, yeah.
where you have the iron and the brass and the gold and all that. So there are certain eras where it goes into obscuration and you don't know as much. We're starting to wake up again because we're coming into a newer age. So I do think that it goes and comes and goes and, you know, fluctuates. Nothing's ever constant.
So science hasn't gone.
And we're not
all over the
linear.
place.
And remember, we're not linear, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't be, so it's kind of like, I think of a wave, you know, it just kind of comes and goes. But yeah, I mean,
It seems to me like there is some resistance in the scientific community to cling to the old paradigm, let's call it.
right.
And a lot of that is just not true, but the people don't seem to want to let go of that.
Right.
And maybe I guess there might be physicists that are like that too, but these kind of
Yeah.
physicists who are doing this kind of stuff are the ones who seem like they have an open mind and they don't fear. I think a lot of these people fear learning more about us
Right.
for some reason because they're afraid they're going to be horrified by something that they discover or something. But, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, this time right now, quantum physics is the key. So every
but
century,
hasn't it's been for our whole lives, hasn't it?
no, I mean, yes, everything's been available, but it hasn't been brought out to the open, to the general public. It's only been esoteric, only for, you know, the hidden, for the high priests and those
Yeah.
type of things. You know, they didn't
Yeah.
give this kind of teaching out to a general
It's
public.
being externalized.
It's exactly, it's being externalized now because now is the time for it. Back, I think in the 1800s, it was the magic with the seances and all that.
Mhm.
And then we came into the Alice Bailey days and that became the psychology, you know, everything was, we learned about the psyche and consciousness and all that. And now we're going into quantum physics. So the universe is starting to open up more to us.
I'd like to just comment. Scientists are very conservative. And we're coming into quantum physics is only like 60, 80 years old, that the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics, I think was 1939. And we have no idea what's going on. We're finding out now that thought has gravity. Things like we could be living, if the holographic principle of quantum physics is true, we are simply living in a holographic universe where we are simply shadows of the fourth and fifth dimension. Think about that. And the law of observation that Tracey mentioned,
The observer effect.
photons, protons, electrons don't even exist. This isn't science fiction. They don't even exist until they're observed.
That's your wave, wavicular versus particular particle.
Particle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're coming on principles in quantum physics that we have no idea what's going on. But in the laboratory, they're proving that thought has gravity. Law of attraction. Schrodinger's cat,
Live or dead.
parallel universes. These are all, the multiverse is, you're
Multiverse.
hearing a lot about the multiverse now.
Correct.
We have no idea what we're playing with,
There's a lot.
but we're moving forward.
Are we spirit beings living in a container that's human?
What we just learned tonight is we're three things. We're spirit, consciousness, and matter.
Okay.
Now, how much spirit, how much consciousness, and how much matter does a human being have? That's what makes us so special. We have equal amounts of spirit, equal amount of consciousness, and we are like the level, if you had a thing, we're not too much
The
spirit, we're
balance.
not too much, we are right in the middle.
In the
That's
universe.
in the whole universe. That's what makes a human being so special. Because we are equal
Parts.
amounts all the way across the board. When we're in these physical bodies,
Mhm.
we're dense, physical. When you pass away, you're lighter, you're in a different, your matter changes a little, but in this physical body, yes.
So when did the first observation happen? If it
Which
doesn't
one
come
are you
into
talking about?
existence until the
Babbitt?
observer,
Mhm.
no, I mean, like, the whole big
picture-
picture. So we're multi-dimensional beings, right? So we're like, I saw this show one time, I think it's called The String Theory.
Yeah.
And it showed a guy sitting down at a bar, and all of a sudden, there was like 15 more of them sitting there. And it was they were kind of trying to illustrate that we're multi-dimensional beings, so we're like in all these different dimensions right now. But when you talk about the observer
Okay.
effect or whatever, so in the creation of everything that you talked about there, didn't it take an observation at some point to bring things into matter?
Of
Yeah.
course.
So
Yeah.
who or what was that first observation or whatever?
Okay.
Go ahead, David.
You know what I mean?
One thing I need to say about that is there's a double slit experiment that almost proves that photons have consciousness.
Okay.
Can a photon be an observer?
It sounds like it to me, doesn't
That's what I
it?
said.
Okay,
Spirit,
yeah.
consciousness, and matter.
So-
Everything has
Yeah,
it,
so
everything.
the first thing with consciousness was the first observer, maybe. To put it
exactly.
Like on a,
But when I say we're in kindergarten, as far as quantum physics goes, we're not even in kindergarten.
Not even
Preschool.
close. Yeah.
we're a fetus.
We have no idea. We have no idea how to even interpret the
Yeah,
findings of quantum physics.
yeah.
But you have to remember Brahma, or our universe, has lived and slept and woken up many, many times, billions and billions and billions, and we don't even know, right? And everything within that has the spirit conscious, everything's conscious, even if it's unconscious. It has an element of that and it can be woken up.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, what level.
I started going to the Buddhist temple in 2015. And my spiritual growth had plateaued and I needed some boost. And so I went and they had folding chairs. I didn't have to sit on a mat and I was happy. And they were saying that if I can observe my thoughts, I'm not my thoughts. And they said, if I can observe my feelings, I'm not my feelings, because my feelings will change. Like in 5 minutes, my feelings will change. And they were really stressing this observer as an advanced level of awareness.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to tell you is you need to observe that you're not your thoughts. And
There
you
it
need
is.
to observe that you're not your feelings.
Instead of identifying with them,
Correct, correct.
observe them.
You need to be the outs, you need to, it's for everything, especially when you get emotionally involved
Yeah.
with something, step out of the tornado and look down at it as the observer. What do you see? And I think that's what they were trying to tell you, because we really are not our physical bodies. We're not our emotions. We're not our mind. Okay, we obviously know that we're light. We're infinite beings. So we're only having that human experience because we chose to be here, and our Anu have developed far enough that we're not animal anymore. We're not mineral or plant. We've come, that's why I said, how many days of Brahma has it taken for us, whether it's in our solar system, now I'm talking the universe, or another solar system. That doesn't mean that every one of us here is originally from our solar system. Okay. So who knows? I mean, we talk about Sirius and all these sacred planets, even in our own solar system, Venus, maybe some of us were Venusian at some point. Maybe some of us were Saturn, or we may have been from, or from Arcturus and from that chain. We don't know, but we know that our consciousness and our, we come in, we're pretty good if we're human at this point.
So I learned TM when I was 18. And I can remember going to stuff before that, and they said to kind of what we were saying here is don't get like emotionally involved in yourself or whatever, be an observer of yourself. And I can remember after I started doing it and I really got it, that sometimes when I was meditating, it wouldn't be when I was like in that deep part, it would be like right before that, I would kind of see my life going by me. Like my memory, it wasn't, but my memories of things that happened to me in my life that I pictured like in a movie, but I was kind of like just observing it. And it was almost like I got to a point where I was thinking, maybe I'm like going back and unjudging myself or something, because I would just kind of see parts of my life going by and just be observing.
I wanted to say we are 8:33, so we not
We've extended.
we
Sorry,
extended,
guys.
but that's okay. So
It's been fun, so I want to thank everybody for being here, and I know it was more of a science thing, but. it was
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you.
No,
Okay, we can continue our conversations up in the living room. Thanks, Tracey. Good job.
Thank you,
Very
Tracy.
good.
That was great, Tracey. Thank you.
But it wasn't more than a-
No,